Hey everybody, how's it going? Drew here. Just want to talk some more PayPal today. They have recently sent out an email. If you have a PayPal account, you've likely either seen this email or you got it one way or another. Like most people, including myself, you might have just tucked it away and maybe said, I'll look at that later, or maybe just decided you might ignore it entirely. But right now, I was going to go ahead and pull this up. It's always good to keep up on this stuff. At least look at the highlights, look at the bullet points. That's what I'm going to do here. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into the details of all the legalese of the user agreement and get into all the nitty gritty. But we're just going to look at these highlights, these primary things that they say they're updating. And I just want to make sure I'm aware of it. And so I figured we might as well do that together. So let's go ahead and switch over to the user agreement here. This is where it'll send you when you click the link in that email. And they have a lot of details here that pass, all the actual legal agreements. If you really want to get into that, you can. Past policy updates. This one is important. If you haven't really looked at this, it's good to look at. It's basically what we're going to look at today, but for everything before these latest updates. So here, anything all the way earlier than 2013, they have a PDF. 2013 to 2018, there's another one. And then most of 2019 through present day is available here as well. So that's good to look at. But today we're going to look at the most recent changes. And we can see here, these are going to go into effect July 31st. So today is the 5th as I'm recording this of July. Had a good 4th yesterday. Happy holidays. Hope you all did as well. But the end of this month basically is when all this is going to go into effect. So let's just go ahead and start reading through these bullet points and see what we think. First one, we are expanding our seller protection program to include certain intangible goods and providing the terms and conditions with respect to the coverage of such intangible goods. That one's interesting. So right now, if you're selling digital goods of any kind, so a non-physical product or services, then it can be very difficult to win a dispute if that person says they didn't receive that item. And this is the case with PayPal and any other payment processor. They are all very similar because the card banks, they want to keep their buyers, their card holders happy. And if they say they didn't get something, they're going to ask for some sort of evidence that it was delivered and that they did get it. And the only evidence they pretty much accept right now is a tracking number from a third-party carrier like UPS, FedEx, USPS, or whoever the case may be. If you don't have that as a seller, they're not, even if you have lots of other good evidence, they don't take emails, they don't take chat windows, they don't take digital delivery confirmations. But maybe some of that's changing because it says they're expanding our seller protection to include certain intangible goods. So they're leaving that pretty open there. We're going to have to wait. All the details really aren't available yet because it's not in effect yet. But that's definitely a bullet point going to want to keep an eye on and see what changes are there. We sell lots of digital goods ourselves. If you don't know, go to angeleye.com and we got lots of good PayPal plugins, WordPress, WooCommerce, all sorts of stuff. We are clarifying that the seller protection program does not cover unauthorized transactions initiated in an environment not hosted by PayPal. Okay, so what exactly does that mean? Well, if you're selling on PayPal, they do have the seller protection program. And if somebody, previously we were talking about a buyer might file a dispute saying they never received the item or item not received. In this case, they're talking about if the buyer simply says it was unauthorized. I didn't know about that transaction. I didn't authorize it. I don't know what this person is, what they charged me for or what this was. So they want their money back. Unauthorized transactions, apparently they're going to clarify that seller protection doesn't cover that in non-hosted PayPal environments. So what is a hosted PayPal environment? Well, basically, anytime you click a PayPal button and it loads a PayPal login or even credit card checkout, but on a PayPal branded page of some sort, whether it's a pop-up or a redirect through the PayPal app on mobile devices, those are all PayPal hosted, which means the actual payment that's happening happens on PayPal servers. The buyer isn't entering any data directly into your website or into your app. That's all handled by PayPal, which is part of why they give you better seller protection that way. And apparently that's what they're going to do here is add, if you're taking credit cards directly on your website, PayPal does have PayPal Pro, and then that can go through the PayFlow gateway or, the old Do Direct Payment gateway. If you're a developer, you might know what I'm talking about there. Or the new REST APIs. If you're taking a credit card directly, that's a non-hosted or it's not hosted by PayPal, as this is phrased. And so they're basically going to clarify, apparently, that type, if you get an unauthorized transaction, when you're the one processing that card on a non-hosted PayPal checkout, they're not going to cover that. So just be aware of it as a seller. If you're in that boat, make sure you protect yourself in those cases. There's lots of ways. That's kind of the idea. When you put it out off to PayPal and they're hosting that, they follow all the standard procedures. So that's why they're confident that if that transaction goes through, it is authorized. And if in the off chance that it's not, they'll cover you. But if it's going on your site, then that's your responsibility to follow all those procedures, which is to check address verification. Make sure the address is a full match or you don't ship it. Make sure the card code came back as a match or don't ship it. If you have any reason at all to believe that there might be something fishy about the order, try to give them a call, schedule an online meeting or something with them, talk to them face to face, do a little bit of due diligence about your buyer if you have any reason to believe at all, especially with expensive items. And if you're processing that payment directly, that's something you're going to want to look at. It's always been that way. They're just saying we're clarifying. So they're going to probably change the verbiage in the agreement just to make it very clear. Okay, so what's next? For significantly not as described claims, or what you might see as a SNAD claim. So for significantly not as described claims under our seller protection program, we are clarifying that the item may not be returned to sellers, or sellers may be required to accept the returned item and pay for the return shipping costs. So this one's very interesting. And I think this is going to be a direct response to a scam that I've seen going on a lot, which I do have another video on you might want to check out. But basically the quick and short of it is, with PayPal, if you file significantly not as described, if you buy something and you say, hey, this wasn't as described, I want to return it and get my money back, then again, PayPal, along with all the card banks and every processor out there, is going to say, okay, great, we'll help you with that, but you need to return your item back to the buyer so that they need to get their item back if you're going to get your money back. The way they prove that you've returned it is through tracking numbers that shows you've returned it. Well, the scam is people have been putting out ads about whatever product. Looks like a good product, looks like a good price. And then you buy it, and when you get it, it's like a miniature version of that product, or just something completely off, not usable, not something you can use. So then you file significantly not as described. Unfortunately, the return address that the seller provides is in some other country that's extremely expensive to ship to, oftentimes more expensive than the item was to originally purchase to begin with, which is exactly the scam. They price it that way so that it looks like a good deal, and that so it'll be too much for you to want to return. And then that becomes a big problem in the PayPal system and from people buying those sorts of things. They don't want to return it. PayPal does have a return shipping program, which I do have another video about as well, but that only covers up to, I think, $35, and you have to go through an application. It's kind of a procedure. It's a useful thing. It's good to have as an option, but it doesn't help in this particular scenario. So again, it looks like what they're doing here is responding to that. And so they're basically saying, we are clarifying that the item may not be returned to sellers. So, hey, seller, if we get this, we may not tell them to fully return it based on all the variables at play here. Or we may tell them to go ahead and return it, but you have to cover that return cost. And so off the top of my head, I kind of feel like they're going to be looking at this, they're going to automate it as much as possible, but on a case-by-case basis, if they see this scenario where, the item that you received is obviously not as intended or not as advertised, and then the shipping is to some random country, and if it fits this claim or this scam model, it looks to me like they're going to go ahead and help you out on those. So again, we're going to need to see more details as that comes available, but that's a good one to see. Hopefully they're going to help fix that problem. What's next here? We are providing the terms and conditions under which we will automatically enroll eligible charities and with PayPal Giving Fund, which relationship will be governed by nonprofit user agreement with the option to opt out at any time. Okay, so they're basically flipping the way that works now. If you're a nonprofit and you're not aware of PayPal Giving Fund, I do have another video about that you should check out with details. It's a really cool program for nonprofits. It's got a lot of benefits for you, including free, feeless donations. PayPal, they'll give you a donation page, and when people donate through that page, you don't pay any fees on it. And it also puts you into a lot of other things. Again, I got another video on that. But the way it used to be, or the way it is right now, if you're a nonprofit, you have to specifically enroll into the PayPal Giving Fund. So of course, in order to enroll, you got to know about it. And a lot of people simply don't know about it. So it looks like what they're doing here is kind of reversing that. So when you create a PayPal account, you put in your tax IDs and everything. If that comes back and shows that you're a 501c3 nonprofit, or whatever type of official nonprofit, then they're just going to automatically enroll you in the Giving Fund with the option to opt out. So that's kind of cool. You'll get all the benefits. A lot of people probably start getting donations and they'll be like, where the heck did this even come from? Oh, wow, I got PayPal Giving Fund. I mean, obviously they'll send out emails and stuff when you get enrolled, but you'll have to see those emails, of course. So that's a cool one. What's next here? We are excluding items intended for resale, including single item transactions or transactions that include multiple items, from reimbursement eligibility under the Purchase Protection Program. That one's interesting. And initially, kind of my first thought is that's kind of scary, but I guess I don't fully. Apparently, if you're buying an item for resale, if you're purchasing from vendors, then apparently those items are not going to be covered by purchase protection anymore. So basically what that means is you're going to need to make sure you're buying from good vendors. So maybe it sounds like people were taking a little bit too much advantage of just trying to find good deals out there when it's too good to be true. And it's pretty much obvious people, you're getting 1,000 units of something at 5% or what the retail cost is, that doesn't make sense. So if you're doing that kind of thing, apparently PayPal's going to say, look, we're not covering you on that. It's too much. Costs too much to deal with all that, and they're trying to just put that on you again as a seller. Some of this responsibility is yours. You need to make sure you're buying from good vendors. So when you see these deals that are too good to be true, or make sure you reach out to these people. It's so easy these days to jump on a meeting of some kind and talk to people face to face. If they're not willing to do that, then they're probably not a good person to be buying from. So when you're finding, when you're sourcing your products, it does say single item transactions or transactions that include multiple items. So that one's going to be interesting to see more details as they come available. But just be careful. Again, you got to do your due diligence and make sure you're buying from reputable vendors, and that will never be an issue for you. What's next? We are requiring that buyers attempt to resolve their issue directly with sellers prior to filing a claim with us in order to be eligible for reimbursement under the Purchase Protection Program. So that's another thing. It's kind of related. I see this all the time. People make a purchase and then they're unhappy with that purchase for one reason or another, and they just go straight to PayPal. I've always been a little confused by that. You have a seller involved. You have card banks involved, and then you have PayPal kind of as a middleman with all this. And yet PayPal's the one that takes the brunt of the blame when something goes wrong and people expect them to just solve all the problems. You got to contact the person that you bought from, and apparently they're gonna try to force that a little bit more. So if you buy something and you're unhappy with it, reach out to the seller. To me, that's always seemed like common sense, but I guess I just must be overlooking when people shop online and they pay a different way than cash or with a credit card. They just think of it differently, I guess. But it's the same. It's no different. So when you buy something online and you're unhappy with that purchase, reach out to the seller first. See if they're willing to, work with you, if they'll maybe do an exchange or offer you something else and, to make up for that, or go ahead and figure out the refund for you, store credit, whatever it is they want to offer, you deal with that out with the seller. If they're not being cooperative, if they're not responding, if you're not happy with what they're offering and you don't feel like it's fair, then okay, PayPal has a dispute program that you can, or, a resolution system that you can go through and try to get your money back. But you got to contact the seller first, and try to handle that on your own. Okay, next item. What do we got here? We are requiring that you notify us of any pricing errors or discrepancies within 90 days of having access to your account statements or other account activity information. Otherwise, we shall have no obligation to make any corrections. Okay, so that one's it sounds just like bookkeeping. Basically, if you feel like you got charged the wrong fee on something, a transaction that you got maybe had fees that you disagree with, or if you're having trouble reconciling your accounts in some way, they're saying you've got 90 days to reach out to them. So that's a full quarter. I mean, if you haven't tried to figure it out by then, it must not have been that important. And it looks like that's kind of the way they're thinking. So they shall have no obligation. So that's not saying that they're just not going to help you in those cases. If it's outside this 90-day window, they might not put as many resources behind trying to find a discrepancy with you or figure that out. But, if you have plenty of evidence or, they don't have the obligation. So that one sounds more like bookkeeping. That doesn't come up very often. And as long as you're reconciling your books at least once per quarter, looks like you'll be fine there. Next, we are clarifying the fees payable by sellers in relation to transactions processed through QR codes, which will be payable on and from October 1st, 2020, or a later date as determined and offered by us. Okay, that's kind of an interesting statement there. Prior to this date, transaction fees on QR code payments are temporarily waived to help businesses impacted by the stuff going on. Other fees for using the PayPal services may apply. So this one's really interesting. And I actually, again, have another video on this one. So you might want to check that out for more details. But basically, with PayPal, you can create a QR code. And when people scan that code, it allows them to easily pay you. They just put in an amount and hit pay. It goes through PayPal and pays you through that QR code. And it's touchless. So that's one of the reasons they're, with all the current events going on right now, they are kind of pushing that. And over the next 90 days, they are waiving the fees entirely on any QR codes. And again, that's to help small businesses kind of recover from everything going on right now. So there's 2 points to that. It's touchless and there's no fees. So again, I got another video that covers more details on that. But that's just a good one to be aware of. And if you aren't aware of it, that's not nonprofit or anything. That's anybody. That's if you create a QR code and people pay you through that QR code right now, no fee. So if you got a big transaction or you got a client about to send you a big payment, maybe go ahead and give them a little incentive to scan a QR code and pay you that way. And help each other out. So that's for the next 3 months. And it says, or later date as determined or offered by us. So even after that, again, my other video gets into more details, but the fee structure in general is a little cheaper with QR codes than it is with other types of PayPal payments. And that's going to be apparently, I don't know if it's indefinite, but they're carrying it out quite a long time. So that's a good one to be aware of. So let's see, last bullet point here. We are adding payments made in respect of gold in physical form or in exchange traded form to the list of ineligible items or transactions under the seller protection policy. So this one, again, these are all pretty interesting to me. Payments made in respect to gold. So physical form or exchange traded form. So my first thought is they're talking about investment type transactions here. If you're selling shares of a gold mining stock or index funds, ETFs, whatever the case may be, related in gold, or gold bars, physical gold form, then that's no longer going to be covered under seller protection. So that's interesting. Now when they say physical form, Does that include jewelry? Does that, a solid gold bracelet, necklace, whatever the case may be? I would think no, but that's interesting. I mean, physical form is physical form. So that I'm definitely curious to see more details on that one. Again, my hunch is that the fine details there is going to show that they're talking about investment style transactions. If you're a jewelry dealer, pretty sure you're still going to be covered by seller protection. But again, that'll be a good one. If you're in that boat, make sure, and here by the end of this month, they're going to be updating the specific user agreement. You're going to want to look into that. So down here at the bottom, the last few things: Payments Pro, Virtual Terminal, Payflow, PayPal here, Advanced Credit Card. These are all direct credit card. So this, again, what we mentioned above about hosted versus non-hosted PayPal, all this stuff down here is going to be non-hosted, for most of it anyway. Advanced cards, it depends on how it's integrated. I got other videos that get into all the details, but most of this is going to be your direct credit card processing one way or another. Your user is entering their card details into a form that you have designed and that you are hosting on your own servers. And it looks like they're updating all their data processing terms around how all this works. So yeah, just updating some of the direct credit card stuff. Looks like Amex operating guide is going to be included. So there's not much as far as this is all just data, like how they're handling the data, who touches it and when, where it gets stored. And so again, that comes back to this one up here. If it's not hosted, they're clarifying that you're not covered by seller protection. So that's just something to be aware of. So a lot of info here. All this comes, if we go, what you really want to study, if you just Google PayPal user agreement, this is the user agreement right here where all this detail really comes from. And I see so many people, that say, oh, PayPal limited my account for no reason. Well, there's always a reason, and the reason is outlined in this user agreement. So it's something to be aware of. It looks kind of lengthy, but it's not that bad. These sections are big. There's lots of pictures and stuff in it. Or like diagrams and things. I'm not seeing any right here, but I know I saw some earlier. But yeah, basically, and you can only review, if you're sending in money or buying things from people, here's where you want to go through that stuff. If you're selling online, make sure you read through how the details here about surcharges and how transaction fees work and refunds. Seller protection is a big one. PayPal advertising, they've got ways they'll help you advertise your stuff and really help you generate more sales. Never know about that stuff if you don't read through this. So again, the policy updates are just telling you that by July 31st, 2020, that all this information should be updated in here. They got a downloadable printed version, etc. So just good to keep up on that. I know it's boring. It's not the most fun stuff. We just want to be selling and making money, or buying stuff quickly and easily, which PayPal gives us all that. And just when you're doing that though, and again, whether it's PayPal or anybody else, always, just when you see emails like this, go through the bullet points. Hopefully this helped. There's some interesting things coming. Definitely, maybe we'll do a follow-up video after the month when the user agreement is fully updated to include all these details and answer some of the questions. I'm curious about this gold one, the digital goods and seller protection, and yeah, all these were pretty interesting to me. So hopefully you found that useful. If so, please like, subscribe, do all the things. Really, really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow, helps others learn about all the same stuff. And go out there, have a good time selling. Happy PayPaling. See you next time. Thanks.